So I think Herman Miller and Miller Lite need to collab and make Herman Miller Lite.
That's actually really funny. How long you been sitting on that, Chris? How long have you been sitting on that?
Like 3 minutes. So
that's actually
it's pretty
hilarious.
Fresh.
You got to send that to Jason. Jason would love that.
All right. We'll have to clip it. Send it to him.
Clip it.
Today I've been playing with your favorite thing ever, GitHub Actions.
Oh, yeah.
So we've been working on that custom image. I think I talked about in a previous episode, or just to you personally at some point. So we've been using Packer and whatever. And it's like, I need to build like a version of it that uses, in theory, I can build like a local version to test against VirtualBox or Multipass or something and just use like a VM. Because right now I'm using like the DigitalOcean source. So like create a droplet and then use it to create the snapshot, which is great because that's what I'm trying to integrate with. But not having to like wait for a server to spin up and just being able to like use Packer against the local image would be so much easier just to be a bit more portable or whatever. But I got it all working and then was like, I should run GitHub workflows for validating the configuration when I like make a pull request or push a commit or whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. What I have with Packer is like it references files from the Hatchbox repo. So like I just assume, I'll have them both cloned on my development machine next to each other and just reference that relatively, which works fine until you get to GitHub Actions. And it's like, well, now you have to check out a separate repo, but the token we create for you is tied to that specific repo. So you have to then, the cleanest solution was to make sure they're under the same organization, make a GitHub app that's private to you and only works for your organization, then have it generate a private key, and then there's a thing from GitHub for this. Actions create GitHub app token. So then you specify like the client ID of the app, and then you take the private key from the app and drop it in as a secret. And then it can generate a token for the other repository to clone it. And then I have it cloned into a folder, because otherwise, if you don't specify that, it just blows away the original clone, which is also not what you want. So that allows you to like make a separate token so that you can clone it. You could use SSH keys. You could make a personal access token.
I was going to say, why not just use a personal access token?
Well, because like that could easily get lost, or those might actually require an expiration as well.
Yeah,
so these are like ephemeral keys that expired in an hour or whatever. This is like pretty convenient to effectively generate temporary keys to clone. And then, it like clones the repository into a folder. And then I did a sparse checkout because obviously I don't need the entire Rails code base. I need like a folder of some templates. So I cloned just that folder now, and then Packer can run its validation, ensure all the files exist, which is kind of nice that like it can do that, because you say like the source file and the destination in the image. But as part of validate, it's like, let me just go make sure the source files exist. And I was like, I guess that makes sense. I was assuming, validate would do something basic, like just check a caddy file validation. It's like, is the syntax correct? The actual internals of what it does may or may not be, but what is something simple like a file transfer or whatever, that makes sense. So I ended up doing that this morning. So I thought you'd find that interesting. So I don't know. I haven't like had much need other than running some basic tests for the most part for Rails apps, or like running a suite of tests for Pay or Madman or Noticed or something to run against Postgres and MySQL and different Rails and Ruby versions. Like I've had effectively doing the same thing, but in like a matrix of variations or whatever. But this was one where I was like, I've never actually had to clone a second repo in an action before. So that was a fun experiment. But it worked like a charm after, the 10 red actions that run before that, where it's try this fix, try that fix, try this.
After you set up a GitHub app, that seems...
That's one where I was like, I don't know the trade-off of having a personal access token versus like a GitHub app is any better. At least if it's in the organization, it can be kept sort of together, and then I can know it's private just to the organization, so it can only be installed on our org and nobody else could ever like break into it and stuff. Or like if the key leaked, even if the like private key leaked for it, can't do anything with it unless you already have access to our organization, which is already a crime. So
that's illegal. Yeah. Interesting.
So it was fun. Have you had to do anything like that?
I have in the past, not in a long time. I did a bunch of GitHub Action stuff this week too, but I haven't had to do that in a long time. And if I had, I would have used an access token. Yeah. But I don't have anything currently that does that.
It was a nice little workaround to do the GitHub app thing, I thought, because I was like, I could very likely forget what this key does or why if I'm going through, and I'll occasionally look through my access tokens and delete old ones from maybe a screencast or whatever I was testing at some point. And I was like, I just don't want to run the risk of that disappearing. So now there really is none.
Can't you make access tokens in the org instead of your user?
Yeah, you can.
And they're also not personal access tokens anymore. There's like, it's like a scoped key now.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like various types of keys that you can do. So when I was working on Cell Repo, like I had to dig into that, and I discovered organizations, I think by default force an expiration to exist, but you can actually turn that off. And so then when you make a personal access token, you can say it never expires, which is really what we wanted, because on Cell Repo originally, I didn't know you could disable the expiration. So I was like, well, I guess in the instructions, you have to change this every like 90 days or a year or something. And it was like, if it's a year, you're going to forget the steps you need to take to go create a new token. What were its permissions, all that stuff. And I was like, well, this isn't great. And I got bit by that too, because my token expired. Somebody went to like buy a license and then it didn't work. And I was like, well, that's embarrassing. But it was just before I had discovered that, yeah, you can turn them off at a organization level. Did you know that downtime costs $427 per minute on average for small businesses and up to $9,000 per minute for medium-sized businesses? That's every single minute. Honeybadger helps you avoid costly downtime and saves you money by combining error tracking, performance monitoring, uptime monitoring, and more into one easy-to-use platform, helping you fix outages faster than ever. Best of all, Honeybadger is free to get started, and setup takes as little as 5 minutes. Be sure to bookmark honeybadger.io. That's www.honeybadger.io.
I'm looking right now at the fine-grained personal access tokens, which is the newer version of the personal access token.
Yes.
You can set no expiration for it.
That's good. I forget. I think it was just because the orgs by default had that turned off or whatever. So the org level ones didn't allow it or something. What I really enjoy, though, about this solution is like, you think of GitHub apps as something you would do for a public integration with GitHub. And it's like, no, and they understand too, like we can totally make these work within your organization only. And that's just like a cool solution to use like GitHub to solve a limitation of another one of GitHub's features. Limitation may be too strong of a word for it, but it's like, it feels like a limitation when you're like, wait a minute, I get that checkout is going to like clone the current repo, but isn't it a pretty common situation when people are using microservices or something that they're going to need to run maybe 3 or 4 apps or something, or have access to them or something? I guess some of that was solved with Git submodules or whatever, but
yeah, or a monitor
sometimes
repo, really.
Yeah, it was a fun solution. It reminded me of the other thing I did this week on Monday. I finished the project last week, but it was like Friday at 4:45 p.m., like right before I go pick up the kids. And I was like, I'm not deploying that until Monday. So one of the funny things is, so when you use Caddy with on-demand TLS, basically an unknown domain comes in. Caddy is like, hey, let's go ask your application for permission. Should we create a SSL certificate or not? The confusing part is like when you are on a single server, you can just say, hey, hit localhost 9000 or whatever, and it'll keep it within the server and be super fast. Because obviously you want this to be fast because it's in the middle of another customer's SSL request, which is kind of fascinating, like a nested request there. So in Hatchbox, this just hasn't really worked well for load balance clusters because when we send the request over to like one of the upstreams, it's going to want to redirect to SSL, but it's also not going to recognize that domain. So it's going to be like, what do you want me to do with this? So ideally for that request, I needed to set a couple headers to say like, pretend this has already had SSL stripped, don't redirect it. And here's the host I want to redirect or send this request to. So it turns out some of our customers were crafty and had a brilliant solution where they put in their application's hard-coded DNS and a HTTPS URL for it. So what would happen is the unknown domain request comes in. Caddy then sends a request to your actual public SSL endpoint. And so the request actually is very slow because it leaves the network, does its DNS thing, comes right back into the same Caddy instance, and then forwards up to your upstream because it this time actually did have an HTTPS protocol and it had a host. So it could appropriately go and be a load balanced or reverse proxied up to the correct application on the upstreams. And I was like, well, that's pretty creative that people had found this. But I was still struggling to find, like, how am I going to solve this? Because if Caddy can't add headers, how do I do this cleanly in Caddy? And so they've replaced the ask feature, which is just a URL you could specify, with modules. So they've replaced it with a module that does the exact same thing, but doesn't allow any configuration. So I was like, well, time to crack open Claude here and have it write a Go module for me. And we'll build a repo for that and then build a custom Caddy implementation. And I was like, this seems like a lot of work to solve this problem still. And I just kept poking around the GitHub issues. The greatest solution I found was create an additional Caddy host in there. So like pick a number like localhost 5000 and then have the on-demand TLS request go to that, which then goes right back to the internal Caddy. And then that reverse proxies and adds the headers and does the actual like forwarding of the request to the upstreams. So it was like using Caddy itself to solve a sort of like limitation of that feature of Caddy. And I was like, that's genius. Like I wouldn't have thought of that unless I saw an example of it. Cause I was like ready to pull out Go and start building a freaking module and trying to figure out how to parse the configuration for additional options and whatever else. We're going to have to support multiple upstreams. And then I'm going to have to rebuild the whole freaking reverse proxy functionality here. And then you find that comment and you're like, why don't you actually just use the reverse proxy functionality? Mind blown. So shipped that on Monday and it worked like a freaking charm. It's kind of an annoying one to test locally because it's SSL for unknown domains and you can like hack your host file to test an unknown domain, but you still are not like a public thing for it to actually like do the full let's encrypt flow or whatever. So I was like, we'll test it in production. I don't want to do that, but worked like a charm. It was so great. It was just another weird situation this week of like, yeah, you know what? These products are flexible enough that they can solve their own limitations in creative ways. I don't know. There's just something cool as hell about that. That makes me happy.
I did some GitHub Action stuff, and so did Jamie, which is really interesting. But GitHub released a test coverage feature. So now it can, in the platform, like whenever you do a CI run, you can upload your code coverage to GitHub using an action that they have. And it will then add a comment on the PR about the coverage change and this and that.
No kidding.
It doesn't work that great. Our setup is a little confusing because we use Knapsack. So I basically have to upload, and Knapsack will overwrite the coverage if you don't do something specific that they thankfully have documented. But basically every run, all shards of the run they have to upload their coverage, and then I have to have another job pull all the artifact down to combine it to then upload it, which is a little annoying. I mean,
that's annoying. Yeah. You know that GitHub's test suite themselves is running in parallel, right?
Because it's so niche to like whoever's doing it. Yeah, because it's so niche, I don't really think
it's fair if like when you're thinking about building that feature, you're like, I need the complete. GitHub's not going to know how to add unless you gave it some numbers to add together. It's like, here's 25%, here's 14% and 10%. Right. So that's your total coverage. Like otherwise, how in the hell are they going to add those together? So yeah. I guess that makes sense.
And it depends on like what you're using. So they want it in like, oh my God, it's like Cortuba something. Hold on.
I played that in marching band.
Cobertura. I don't know if that's pronounced right.
Huh.
It's an XML format and simple.
That's probably why I've not heard of it.
Yeah. SimpleCov, there is a gem to use it with SimpleCov, and GitHub did mention that. Here's like the extensions you can add.
Got it.
To do it. But
what's the GitHub feature name for
GitHub
this?
Code Coverage.
Okay. Code coverage.
It's in public preview, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, GitHub
uploads code coverage.
There's a doc page setting up code coverage for your repository that's pretty useful.
Cool.
It's interesting. I can't tell if it's actually working correct. I can't tell if it's the fact that the way I've set it up that's not working correctly, or if it just needs like more work in general. But it only shows on PRs. But you also have to run it on main so that it can compare coverage from main, but nowhere does it actually show you the main coverage anywhere. And they said that that's coming in the future, and it just kind of adds a comment. And what's really funny is the comment. Oh, I just got the unicorn on GitHub. Very cool. The comment truncates the file names. So like you can't actually see what all the file names are. You can just see the app controllers, and then it says _controller.rb. I'm like, okay, cool. That's super helpful. Thank you. And
that's funny.
Ever since I've started running it, it has always said the code coverage is 89%, and that has not changed at all, which is suspicious.
They've got one cache shared somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, whoops.
And it also reports on things that haven't changed, which is interesting because like I'm looking at it up here right here. It says that we changed, or it says that in main, the coverage on it is 70%. In this PR, it's 79%. In nowhere in this PR does it touch that file or touch the test for that file. So I'm not sure if it's just inaccurate or if the way I'm doing it is inaccurate. It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah. Interesting.
But I didn't understand whether it needed to be run on main or not. And I was looking around, and Homebrew had been using it and they'd switched back to SimpleCov. And I had just told Jamie, like, look, I'm going to try this for like a week and then we can talk about it. I don't think I'm going to keep it, but it's possible that I'll be like, well, we can hook this back up to SimpleCov and keep using that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
It may be a little early or whatever. GitHub Actions, when it first came out, was kind of terrible. And
they've changed a lot too.
Now it's way better. So
yeah.
Are you tired of babysitting your job queues? Let us do it for you. JudoScale monitors and autoscales your job queues so you can stop babysitting and get back to coding. We support Sidekick, SolidQ, GoodJob, and just about every other job backend in Rubyland. And of course, we autoscale your web services too. JudoScale scales up your apps faster than any other autoscaler, so request timeouts and backed up job queues are mitigated before they become a problem. JudoScale has a free plan you can use forever, so there's literally no risk, whether you're on Heroku, AWS, Render, or any other cloud platform. Visit judoscale.com and get your job queues under control.
Jamie's been working on self-hosted runners on Hetzner boxes. And I think he's able to run the whole test suite in like 2 minutes now.
That's dope.
And I'm not sure if that's using Knapsack or not. I think he's like distributed across like 42 hosted runners or something. But it runs quick. So he's been playing with that, which has been interesting to watch. I haven't been involved with that because I'm working on something else. But
well, would have been half the price not that long ago, too. Hetzner doubled their prices on most things, I think. Unfortunately, I'm just kind of waiting for like DigitalOcean to do a price increase and stuff. I'm sure that that's coming at some point, but yeah, it really is a bummer.
Actions are expensive.
Yeah, there's like quite a few businesses that are just purely like, here, faster runners for cheaper. And I guess maybe this is related to GitHub being owned by Microsoft and I don't know what Azure prices are in comparison to anything else, frankly. I don't have a clue what Azure prices are for things, but even EC2 instances are considerably more expensive than buying a VPS from, say, even DigitalOcean. And then Hetzner has always historically been quite a bit cheaper. So I'm sure people are being efficient. The actions arbitrage, we can start our own business doing actions arbitrage. Obviously.
Actions arbitrage. It says for the current month, which it's currently the 16th. So for July 1st through 16th, we've used almost 150,000 minutes on actions.
Yeah.
Across 43,000 runs. That's wild. But
that is crazy.
I'm assuming it's not including like the single run, but also including everything that cascades from it.
Totally, I'm sure. That's cool though.
But yeah,
it's awesome to have all of these things as automations that just can run. It wasn't that long ago where that stuff just kind of didn't happen or didn't exist, or you had to run your own Jenkins server or something. I don't know. Like people just like didn't have easy access to, say, for us, for our custom image, I'm like, slap a cron job on it, build that image every week. Then that way we always have the latest package versions or configuration or whatever. And like, it doesn't even have to be thought of by any developer on our team. We just do it. And then, if we introduce a new file to Hatchbox itself that setup happens with, we can even forget about it on the custom image. It'll just be added when the server gets set up for the first time, and we just double check all the files that exist. So even if it goes out of date a little bit, it doesn't matter, but we can drop in real quick and make it part of our workflow to say, hey, if you change this setup script for a server, make sure you also go do that or reflect it back there. And there's a bunch of things too that we could probably optimize. Like if you wrote them in a script that you could just run in both places or something, but we're trying to upload these static files and stuff. So they do require sort of a registration of where's its source, where's its destination, but they're so easy to copy paste and slap a new one in that not a big deal. So
in terms of Ruby this week, we had a few releases.
Yeah, we got a couple maintenance releases.
Yeah, 4.0.6 got released on the 14th, which was a routine update with some small bug fixes.
You're reminding me, there was like one of the issues. Okay, news 406, GitHub releases. If you go there, you can see what's changed. And like one of them that I think may or may not affect more people than I expected, but I don't think I've seen it, was there was a seg fault that was caused by Ruby itself. Seg fault in Prism while Bootsnap compiles the AWS SDK client API.rb file. There's got to be a ton of people using the AWS SDK. So presumably this is a fairly bad thing, but I don't know. It says Ruby version 404 was in the initial report. So I'm not sure like what exactly Ruby versions it affected. It may not have been like even 403 or earlier. It might have just been 404. And
that's so weird. I can't find Ruby version 404. Ha! Got him.
Got him.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm sure a ton of apps are using that. I think that gem is one of the most installed gems.
That's what I figured. I was like, whoa. So yeah, it got fixed and everything 2 weeks ago, a week ago or something like that. Old Jean Boussier was on it. Looks like Luke Gruber may be the one that patched it. Not sure.
There's also a Ruby 3.3.12 update because of a CVE and ERB vulnerability. Let's see what it says. So security maintenance release for the 3.3 line, bundled gems updated to ERB 4.0.4.1 and net IMAP 0.4.2.5, fixed CVEs, plus multiple net IMAP issues.
Old net IMAP. Who even uses IMAP anymore?
I don't even know what it means.
The email protocol.
Yeah.
Do you map? IMAP.
There's a bundler release, bundler 4.0.16, and a Ruby Gems update. Some bug fixes and some Windows bug fixes, looks like.
Speaking of Ruby versions, we've like upgraded Hatchbox to set up new servers with Ubuntu 26.04 LTS. And I had not precompiled like as many of the Ruby versions as I thought I had. So I was doing that yesterday, and Colin and I got in the weeds again on it. But I was able to like compile all the way back to, I think, Ruby 4.3.4, 3.3, 3.2. Those all worked. Then when I got to 3.1, it's using GCC version 15, which has changed some defaults considerably. So like I could get 3.1 to compile if you changed it to use the like C17 standard, and it would go back, and I got like all the way to 2.7 compiled. And then 2.6 I couldn't get to compile because it was complaining about mjit, which was like an old JIT from like 2018 or whatever that got introduced in 2.6. And we only precompile like the very latest version of 2.6 anyways, because it's like so damn old. And we're like, look, if you're going to use this old version, use the latest version of it at the very least, for the love of God. So I spent a while with going back and forth with Claude and stuff. It was like setting some C flags, trying to ignore, because like some of the warnings that used to get printed now are like actual errors. So you can like turn that off. So you just leave it a warning. And I forget what the other thing was. Just like you can also try and go back to like the C11 standard if C17 was too new or whatever. And so I was like, I got like Ruby 2.3 to compile on Ubuntu Resolute. And I forget what other, I was running into 2.2, I think broke for various reasons, but I'm not a C compiler person. I don't do that hardly ever. So it's been really great to have AI to kind of go read all of the GitHub issues of other people doing weird things like I'm doing, installing very old Rubies on very new Ubuntu servers. But yeah, I couldn't manage to get it. Like the Ruby 2.6 thing, I was trying to disable mjit, but it looks like the disable mjit support flag still tries to compile, or it still reads like the mjit header file or something. And so that doesn't get completely skipped, at least in the old build steps or whatever. And it looks like that probably was fixed in 2.7 because it is not a problem for me to compile that. But yeah, I was like, oh, dang it. At some point you get to those sort of edge cases there where like just the way things were back then, it worked and it was fine. Kind of maybe knew that those things were going to be deprecated, maybe not. But yeah, I'm sure you could apply a patch or something to change the make file or whatever it is to like conditionally include the mjit header, and like we could patch 2.6 or something. But I'm like, I'm willing to say, hey, if you're on 2.6, just upgrade to 2.7. It shouldn't be that much of a problem for you, hopefully. And if it is, we might not be the host for you. You can use a 2.6 Docker image, but please just upgrade the damn thing.
Yeah. I think 2.6 was what I was using when I first started. Maybe 2.5 or 2.4, but I definitely remember 2.6 coming out.
Yeah. I remember using 1.9.3 and 2.0 and whatever.
I don't know if you saw this. There was something of topic on Reddit for a post from Dimitri about surviving rolling deploys when Sidekick meets a class it doesn't know.
I think I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the solution he had in there, but I do remember seeing that.
He made a gem to fix it. But then on Reddit,
it was it was like something if there was a class that was undefined that you tried to reference or whatever.
That an old worker picked up, yeah.
Yeah, and it would like re-enqueue the job, basically.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
So basically it's you create a new background job called send shiny new thing job, run the deploy. By the time you're back, the error tracker is on fire because of uninitialized constant send shiny new thing job, but the class is there. The culprit is the rolling deploy. When you roll out a new version, old and new processes run side by side for a while. And during that window, you have two kinds of processes in place. Something that enqueues jobs, a freshly started pods, a scheduler, clock process, or a web process already running the new code, and something that executes the jobs, a Sidekick worker that might be still running the old code because it hasn't been restarted yet. And the new code enqueues the new job, and old worker picks it up and tries to materialize the class from the queue payload. And since that constant doesn't exist in its process, it blows up. And active job has the same issue. It's a race condition. And Mike on Reddit was like, this is exactly what Sidekick retries are for, basically. And in the article, he says, won't Sidekick just retry? He said, yes. And it's worth saying plainly because it's the first thing everyone asks. Retries are on by default, so that failing job won't vanish. Schedule it for retries. The job self-heals itself. So the problem was never correctness, it's noise, a burst of name errors in your error tracker every single deploy. So really, it's about preventing that error from happening. I don't run into this a lot. I don't know if I've ever seen this. I've run into issues before where we ran into an interesting issue that kind of made me change the way I did some things. And I can't remember if it was, I remember. It's because we were going to remove a job, but I think there were still things trying to run it maybe. And when we removed it, everything started blowing up. So now I make like the job a no-op and like remove the calls to it and then deploy it. And then in a follow-up PR, I remove the actual job.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those can be tricky. And I agree. You'll have to make sure to post the link to that discussion because I was wanting to read Mike's response on that because that was like, obviously he's the background job expert there. So whatever he usually says is the way to go, unless maybe he didn't have enough context on it or something. But I always kind of treat his advice on it as like, all right, you got it. But it can definitely happen. I guess it kind of depends on like, what is the job doing? Like if these errors, as long as they get re-queued by Sidekick, because it was an error, it's going to retry with exponential backoff. So his advice there of like, it doesn't really matter. You just don't need to necessarily send those errors to Honeybadger or whatever, or you could ignore them temporarily. That seems totally fair, especially because like that's kind of the purpose of the background job retries. So it is one of those things where you do probably take it for granted until a situation like that happens in production. And then you're like, I've never even questioned deleting or adding a new job class and everything. Like it's just something like, well, we couldn't even queue up those until we did a deploy, and we've gotten lucky that they've always been nothing triggered it immediately in the middle of like a rolling restart of various Sidekick instances or something. And even like what's Heroku going to do? It's going to probably restart all of them at once.
No, it does not. We have a specific search query in our logging thing called "Did this shit restart?" where you can watch each of the runners like boot down. So and we use several. So yeah, no, it doesn't happen all at once.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to, but
Mike also said, if it was my app, I would configure it to programmatically ignore name error if retry count is less than n, for example. And he links to a Honeybadger article on how you can do that, which I will also include because Honeybadger is the best. But I have Mike's comment and Dimitri's article in the show notes. Yes, Sidekick already handles this automatically for you. They're called retries. They're enabled by default. So I think the article was updated after this Reddit discussion. I mean, because the article actually even mentions the Reddit discussion. So even more annoyingly, I've just discovered this and now I hate it. If you don't log into Reddit, there's no share option for comments, which is the most infuriating thing. And there's no share option for the post itself, which is incredibly frustrating.
I just tried to open Reddit incognito and I get "you've been blocked by network security" with the Reddit character. So
what you been doing on Reddit, Chris?
I have no idea. I'm literally logged in and then refreshing. It's fine. What the heck? Yeah, that is weird. They got rid of those. I mean, you can still right click the timestamp and copy the link, but why would they not want you to share?
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
That's strange.
Reddit's been doing some weird stuff recently. Well, not just recently, but
yeah, for a while now.
For a bit there.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes more sense because when I read the article, I was like, oh, that's totally a problem. But with the automatic retries, I hadn't considered that. It's like, yeah, I guess it is just kind of noise. So
I also saw that Sam Ruby posted something about Spinel. Is that what it is?
Well, it's spelled SPINEL, right?
SPINEL, yes.
Because spinal is with an A.
Oh.
Spinal Tap.
I say a lot of words wrong.
Yeah, Did I ever tell you about my sister in Roller Coaster Tycoon?
No.
People will love this. So when we were little, we had Roller Coaster Tycoon on her computer and we play the crap out of it. But my sister is like, I don't know how old she is, but she's playing Roller Coaster Tycoon and it's got that like sort of pixelated font. And she's still kind of learning to read and stuff. So she's young enough that she's reading people are in line in the queue for a roller coaster ride. So she's excited to come running over, telling me something about all these people in line queeving. And I was like, what are you talking about? What is queeving? And she was like, like when they stand in line in front of a roller coaster. And I was like, you mean queuing? And she was like, oh, it's like one of those words you've heard but never seen spelled before.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, because the U's in Roller Coaster Tycoon's font looked absolutely like a V at the bottom. They were like strangely designed or whatever, but yeah, it's so funny. So now occasionally, randomly, once or twice a year, I'll be like, yeah, I was just sitting there queeving.
Not queeving. Oh, Lord.
And this spindle thing, by the way, is Matt's project, right? That is different than the spindle co-op.
Yes.
Just for anybody following along.
Yeah, and I didn't do as much research into it as I probably should have before bringing it up. There's a lot of posts like about this, but I'll put a link to the show notes. It's kind of interesting, but yeah.
I don't even remember what Spinel was. It was some sort of...
I just saw what it was, and I just Okay, when Spinel is Matz's AOT compiler, whole program inference emits C, real blog fixture, blah, blah, blah.
Spinel
AOT
compiles
compiler.
Ruby's source code into standalone native executables, performs whole program type inference, and generates optimized C code. So you, like the compiler itself, is a single self-contained C binary. So that's basically what you get. You can convert your Ruby program into a native binary, which is sick. That is awesome, because there are so many times where like I want to distribute Ruby stuff, but if it's not just a single self-contained binary, it is very annoying and, requires people to have the specific version of Ruby installed or whatever. I got to try this. This is awesome. I'm curious how well it works. Like if the Spinel, Redis, and other stuff become compatible, then like what, you build a Rails app and turn it into a binary?
Well, and I think that's
deploy that.
Kind of what Sam is trying. I'm not really sure. This is a lot of words that are complicated, but he's doing it on Mastodon.
It'd be cool for Mastodon to be a single executable to download and run.
Yeah.
That'd be super cool.
Spinel Redis exists and is published. Spinel PG exists and is published. Spinel Mastodon streaming runs. Interesting. Which is a port of Mastodon's node streaming server to Spinel Ruby. Interesting.
The goal has a two-part success condition. Mastodon, a real, large, heavily deployed Rails app, passes its own test suite when compiled by Spinel, and the build step earns the status of a supported configuration. I don't really know what that
see, it's a lot of words from someone who's a lot smarter than me.
Yeah, there's a lot of like missing explanation if you are not familiar, like with Spinel, for example.
Right. But I'm going to following this along. It seems very interesting.
I wonder, because he mentions lobsters in here, and lobsters just had some article posted about like pull requests to make it compatible with SQLite. And so I'm wondering if that's in a similar vein, because people were like, why would you like not just use Postgres or MySQL? But this is awesome, because then you could, in theory, have literally, you want to run your own copy of Lobsters or Mastodon. Here's an executable. Either point it to Postgres, which our client is already baked into the executable, which would be sick, right? Like that's libpq built into the executable, built into the PG gem and your Rails app or whatever. And then it could just connect to SQLite, Postgres, MySQL, Redis, whatever, WebSockets, or this like SSC PubSub stuff. So I'm assuming that's kind of the goal of all this. Make it incredibly distributable and stuff, that you don't have to care at all about Ruby or any of the dependencies or whatever. That sounds sweet. So yeah, that would make a lot of Ruby applications way more like distributable. So
does Mastodon run on MRI?
Probably. I mean, pretty much everything
Mastodon does, but runs primarily on MRI.
That makes sense.
Because he says in the article that there's like 3 layers of the topology of Mastodon, which is a Rails web tier, a fleet of Sidekick worker processes, and a streaming server written in Node. The topology exists largely to work around MRI's concurrency constraints. Interesting.
Got it.
And Spinel removes those constraints so the services can be replaced piecewise. Interesting.
Huh.
Yeah, I have to dig more into this. It's interesting. Might have to ask Sam if he wants to talk about it sometime.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
We're not doing a good job of putting all the pieces together.
We've got other things to do.
Doing our best.
But no, I love hearing those types of things and people clearly pushing the edges of, I didn't really know what Spinel was. And I remember Matt's being excited about it and was like, vibe coded it or whatever, which he may have been talking about at RubyConf this week. That's why David's not here. He's at RubyConf. So I'm sure we'll get a update of that next week. But the amount of things like that kind of get unlocked where you're not going to probably go build no one did until AI existed, and you could have it take care of so many of those things for you. For me, like testing those old Ruby things, like I've tried to do that every LTS release in the past, and like I got to go spend so much time on freaking GitHub issues and obscure Reddit things, and the answer might not actually have ever been asked in a Ruby context, but it might have been in like a C compiler discussion somewhere of a different project. And I just need to know that flag exists for this situation. I can never really piece that together myself with Google search, but now with AI, like you absolutely can do that. So this all is a lot more possible to do these days because you just have that quicker direct access to other information like that. So yeah, it's exciting. I like this stuff. There's been countless projects for Python too. How do we take our Python interpreter and our programs and their C extensions or whatever else, and how do we turn them into a distributable binary? And it's always been like, well, it works a little bit here, it works a little bit there, but then it breaks every new Mac OS release and blah, blah, blah. And every single project I've ever seen abandoned. They get really far on it, but then it's like, well, I can't maintain this because it just breaks so much and so hard every time a new OS release comes out. If this is able to just convert it all to like C code, then it's like, that's already very portable. No problem then. That's kind of the cool stuff too of the Graal VM and LLVM.
Yeah.
You have tools, a bunch of things I've never used myself and don't fully understand how they all fit together, but I know that's like the goal, which is cool stuff. But
yeah. Well, on that note, we can wrap this up.
It's all assembly at the end of the day anyways.
I have been a part of 2 monsoons this week, and today we have a flash flood warning at 2:00. So I'm not expecting necessarily to have power at some point today.
You're going to be sitting in your house in a canoe with a big old EcoFlow battery in your laptop. You're like, I'm ready. With some floaties on.
Yeah. Hopefully it goes fine, but we might be cooked, chat. We might be cooked. Those dust storms this week were wild too. Or I had
it's like a reverse snow day.
Yeah.
Melted snow day.
It's like Dune, but
yeah. Oh, dude, I want to go see the Odyssey this weekend.
I do too. I've heard it's really good.
It has gotten like ratings high enough that they were like, this might be Nolan's highest rated film ever. And I was like, okay, that seems like pretty high praise. And I kept looking up stuff and I was like, yeah, everybody seems to agree. So I'm pretty excited for it.
I don't know if anything could ever top The Dark Knight.
Here's a post from Twitter earlier that I have to share. Alex Edelman, sneaking into the Odyssey with 28 of my friends by cramming into a giant wooden horse, leaving it outside in IMAX with a note saying it's a gift.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like this is one of those movies you have to kind of see in a theater, because I'm the type of person like, dude, I will pirate the cam version like of anything.
Yeah,
but
like
I feel like this you kind of have to.
I want to see the new Jackass, but like I don't need to see it in theaters.
I don't need to go to the theater for that.
But something like this, and also some of the people have been comparing the IMAX version versus the regular, like it's not 16:9 or whatever, but like the film ratio cuts off so much, and they're like, you want to go see this in IMAX. So we have at the Science Center an IMAX, and they are playing the Odyssey, and it's $16 to go see. And I was
nice.
Like, that's just like buying a ticket at a regular old theater, I think. So I have to go see that.
I want to see it as well. I'm excited. Well, if we both go see it, we'll have to compare notes.
Yeah, I don't know
how if I can get over Matt Damon. Like Matt Damon, come on.
It's Odysseus. It's not even Matt Damon.
Love Zendaya, but I'm like Tom Holland and Matt Damon. And there's like one other person I was like, why are these people in
Anne Hathaway is in it.
I like Anne Hathaway. She can rock. She's good.
I'm real excited to see it and see how it is. I hope that people haven't overdone it, but
yeah. Well, there's been a lot of hate on it too, so I'm sure if it's
has there.
Oh yeah, so much.
Of course there is. Of course,
yeah.
It's the internet.
I was going to say, every Reddit thread, I feel like people are crapping on it, but all the critic reviews have been so good that I'm like, all right, I feel like these people are just haters and they're upset for dumb reasons. And I would like to see this movie.
Well, hold on a second. Before we wrap up, somebody just messaged me on Twitter and said, would you like to try a pure Ruby written kernel and operating system?
Why?
It's still in its infancy, however it works, and will blow your mind in the engineering I put into it. That sounds like a crazy project and doesn't sound like it would be very fast.
I mean, maybe.
For an operating system, you want the ultra performance, but if it works, that's incredible.
I'd be interested to see it. I don't know if I'd run it.
That's like a fun, well, you could throw in a VM, obviously, but like that's a really fun kind of like academic project where it's like it's such a super challenge that you're going to learn about all these various things that is just like, okay, how do we implement actual proper threading for the operating system here or whatever? And it's like, well, if Ruby can't do it itself, what do we do? So interesting. MRI can't do it itself, I should say. Yeah, fancy kind of project there. So I'll have to hit this person up and see some more details or an example or something. It's wild.
Yeah.
All right. Get back to it. I got stuff to do. I got work to do and I don't want to.
I feel
it's felt like Friday every day this week.
Yeah, it has been a long week.
So
I guess because last week was a short week, maybe. I don't know. What's last week? I don't know. Who cares? Time is fake.
Yeah. Done. All right, dude. Peace out.
Peace.